Professor Uyangoda, you have also spent many years in the university system. From your point of view, can ragging be stopped through the use of intelligence? How prudent is this solution? And if not, what can we do? Essentially the same question as we asked.
Yes, I want to begin by thanking Dr. Shamla Kumar and her colleagues for organizing this webinar. It's an important theme. Well, my answer, like what Professor Sumathy said, is no. I can have capital N and capital O. No. There are two reasons why I don't think introduction of the intelligence services to the universities to combat ragging will not work. The first is that the very idea of introducing the state intelligence services to the universities will be anti-democratic. It will be a part of militarization of the universities, and it will create more problems invariably because students will react to it quite negatively, and it will further radicalize student population. And also, it is likely to be abused by university authorities and the state in order to curtail civil and political rights, not only of students, but also other academic staff and the non-academic staff. It will be anti-democratic and therefore politically counterproductive. The second reason is that the problem of ragging, there is a law and order dimension. There's no question at all about it. But you cannot reduce the problem of ragging to a law and order problem. It has to be tackled after understanding that ragging is a part of institutional culture in the universities. And it has not started yesterday or the day before. It has been there for decades. When I entered the University of Peradeniya in 1968, there was ragging. There was violent ragging. I myself was subjected to violent ragging, including sexual violence. And I saw myself, my colleagues from my batches, and when colleagues from my batches became second-year students, third-year students, they themselves carried on that traditions. Part of that unfortunate culture, which university students leaders describe in positive terms as a university subculture, is that victims themselves become perpetrators in the second year onwards. So it's a pervasive problem in the university system that requires long-term solutions, not short-term solutions. Because what kind of long-term solutions that require not to combat ragging, and I don't like that word combat, this whole militarized discourse, that the organizers of this also have introduced to this seminar, probably unintentionally. What we need to do is to, mitigate the problem of ragging and eventually eradicate it from the university institutional culture. And my understanding is that it will take a long-term solution. It's a long-term process that will start with the acknowledgement of certain unpleasant realities. Unpleasant reality one is that a lot of our university students think that the universities are islands unto themselves where the law of the land does not have any applicability. And they also think that they should have the right to be immune from prosecution and from any penal consequences of their violent actions. The ragging is an extremely violent form of, human interaction. It's almost like police torture. I myself have experienced it, that I myself have seen it. I heard enormous amount of stories of by victims of ragging, that it involves physical violence, sexual violence, emotional violence, verbal violence, control. The students who are subjected to ragging are not only first-year students, even throughout their career, they are subjected to various forms of violence. And we don't have a system to recognize that the emotional violence and verbal violence are also forms of, ragging. And also this second unpleasant truth, the inconvenient truth we need to acknowledge is that university administrators have been living in denial for decades to say that, the violence is not a serious problem. Some of us would remember that last year or the year before, the UGC organized a workshop in Colombo, inviting university councils, council members, vice chancellors, directors, deans. I was there. And, the responses from the university administrators to some of the ideas that were discussed was nothing but apathy, because the university administrators do not want to recognize that there is a serious problem, violence and ragging in their universities. Why? They always want to be in the good books of student activists. They don't want to allow a student activists to come, and surround their vice chancellor's office or registrar's office. Therefore, they all have this, the attitude on the policy of denial. So you have to stop that. Thirdly, the third unpleasant truth and inconvenient truth is that university vice administrators, even the UGC, at the UGC level, still university students are, treated as just children. The language that they are using in singular, duve pute. Actually, the university students are adults, they are citizens, they are rights-bearing citizens over 18 years of age. So we should stop, the university administrators should stop treating university students as just children. They are not, sons or daughters or nephews or nieces or grandsons or granddaughters. They are adult citizens. University students should be told that, they should be responsible for their actions as adults. Every action has consequences. So our university students are told by their uncles, vice chancellors behave as if they are their uncles or foster fathers, foster mothers. That's not the way to treat university students. They should be treated as responsible adults. Then only the law and order question can be addressed. And also then only the question of, this very violent culture can be, eradicated from the university system. That requires a long-term solutions, a long-term solution, not in terms of repressive measures, not in terms of curtailing civil and political rights of students, but in terms of a long-term dialogue involving at least 5 groups: students themselves, university administrators, faculty, the teaching faculty, and parents of students, as well as the leaders of political groups outside the university who are backing these violent student groups. I think they also, political groups also, leaders of political groups also are living in denial. When they are confronted with their responsibility, they would say, no, it's not our responsibility. They would also say that they have no control and they should not be, shedding their responsibility like that. So,
Professor Uyangoda, the time is up.
Okay, I will stop there. I will come back if there is a chance again to discuss some other practical, proposals that I can make.